Two sisters, Meg and Jen, decide to switch places for the holidays to figure out what they want. While Jen tries to bond with her son, Meg gets closer to a handsome stranger, Joe, while working. Meg drops by her parents' cafe in the small town of Hazelwood to pick up some red velvet cupcakes. She's heading to Salt Lake City to visit her sister Jen. Valerie, who is a regular customer, asks about Meg's plans for France that year. Meg's dad, Luke, thinks she might never come back. Meg still has her reservations about France because it will be tough to go there without her Uncle Dave. After he passed last year, Meg worries that her mother, Debbie, is struggling a lot. Debbie has decided to sell Dave's theater since it seems like the practical option. Meg stops by the theater and remembers her childhood. Young Meg wants to add something extra to the dance, but Jen gets frustrated with all the changes. Dave teases Meg about being extra, but she knows she wants to keep working on her good ideas. Dave remembers the time he tried to give the theater a weird name. Debbie suggested he should name it the Madison, after their father. This made him realize that he should rely on his sister for such things. In the present, Meg walks towards a store in Salt Lake and almost breaks something. Joe helps her out and asks about her tuba. She last played it in high school and plans to surprise her nephew and sister with it. Joe seems concerned about her blabbering a lot and leaves when he gets a call from someone. As Meg's nephew and Jen's son Simon films the tuba band, he gets excited to see her there. Jen brings Meg to her restaurant, Umber and Sprig, where she has made some changes. Meg loves that it's exactly like how their dad would have wanted. She meets Joe there again, who happens to be Jen's new general manager at the restaurant. Alex, who also works there, informs Meg about a contest started by a local magazine. 3 restaurants are picked out every year to throw the best Christmas party. The magazine chooses the winner, who gets a prize money of $25,000 for the charity of their choice. Jennifer gets excited about donating to the Big Mountain Food Bank. Meg has always loved Hazelwood at Christmas, but Salt Lake is pleasantly surprising her. With this, Jen feels encouraged enough to ask Meg to stick around for a few more days. Meg is already confused about traveling to Paris without Dave this year. She doesn't think it will be the same without him. Meg is eager to move on to the next best thing for her, which seems like France currently. They run into Alex and Simon at the market, which reminds Jen that she needs to shop for Meg. When Alex and Meg look around, she gets curious about a Christmas tapas stall. Alex knows they have a rotating menu and asks her to try it out. Martin recognizes Alex, since he has been dropping by every single day. Alex flirts with him, so Martin asks him to come back again. After this experience, Meg decides to stay longer in Salt Lake. Jen also wants Meg to experience her restaurant and offers to help out their parents with the theater in Hazelwood. After seeing Jen and Simon off the next morning, Meg finds Joe shopping for a lot of mistletoe instead of holly. She asks Joe about the party and suggests getting a photo booth. The head chef at Umber and Sprig, Victoria, who is Jen's friend from college, is glad to see Meg. She puts all of them to work so they can decorate the Christmas cookies. Meg suggests a cookie decorating station for the party, even if Joe wants to keep it simple. He has planned something very safe with Jen, so they can surely get the food bank donation money. Meanwhile, Meg learns that Victoria's sister is having triplets. She has also applied for her dream job with a famous chef. She loves how supportive Jen has been about this decision. Frank, who is a regular customer, mistakes Meg for Jen because of the same sweater. When Meg sits down to chat with him, Joe calls out to her. Joe insists that he wants the party to be simple since there's too much at stake. He shows her the food bank they will donate to, where he has been volunteering for a long time. He met Jen at this charity and asked her for the job so he could get some free time to volunteer too. He introduces Meg to Marianne, who gets emotional at the possibility of getting the prize money. Marianne shows Meg what she plans to do with it. She wants to convert their shelter into a grocery store. She hopes the homeless will be able to choose what they want to eat in a dignified manner. Meg gets emotional after listening to her and starts thinking of ways to publicize the party. Joe reminds her they don't have enough staff, and he doesn't know how long Meg plans to stay. Meg realizes she wants to stay longer, so Jen offers to handle stuff in Hazelwood while she's there. She's excited about this sister swap, but asks Meg to let her know if she faces any issues with the restaurant. When Meg learns that very few people have confirmed for the party, she suggests sending out an email blast. She thinks that just like weddings, Christmas parties also need some activities so people don't get bored. She wants the party about building a community and suggests adding some dance to it. She finds Frank at the restaurant again, who mentions that he has a daughter. Soon enough, Alex gets back from his first date with Martin. Everyone leaves whatever they're doing to listen to his story. Frank gets interested when he learns about the food bank and offers to volunteer with them. Meg wants a huge tree for the party, but Joe is worried about where people will stand. He decorates wreaths with her, but excuses himself for a call. Meg takes that opportunity to order a huge tree as a surprise for him. After getting off the call, Joe does the same to surprise Meg. Jen realizes something is wrong with Meg when she calls her. Meg believes Jen is the ideal sister because of how she's always there. She shares with Victoria about how Jen listened to her when she admitted she didn't want to be there for the theater's opening. The next morning, Martin joins them all with Alex for the volunteer shift at the bank. When Meg tells Frank a Christmas story, it reminds him of his daughter, Naya. He thinks she's very artistic while he has always been strict with her. He blames himself for creating a distance between them by worrying too much. Joe is impressed with how easy it is for people to open up to Meg. She wants to reunite Frank with his daughter for Christmas, but Joe thinks it might be too much. Meg starts sharing with Joe and admits that it's not easy to go back home without Dave. Joe and Meg's trees arrive at the same time, and they're proud of how alike their thinking is. In the moment, Meg snaps a picture of Frank in front of the trees for the email blast. Meg is relieved that everything for the party seems to be under control. She's also glad that Jen is taking some time off to bond with Simon. Just when Meg and Joe learn that too many people are coming to the party, they get another news. Victoria's sister is about to deliver the triplets, and she got her dream job. She's leaving the restaurant the next day because her sister needs help immediately. Meg and Joe try to be supportive and not freak out about Victoria leaving them before the party. Joe wants to inform Jen that they don't have a chef, but Meg doesn't want to disturb her on the theater opening night. Meg decides to handle this herself, but Joe is worried when Jen doesn't know about it the next morning too. Joe is considering Jesse Collins, a Michelin-rated chef, for the position. Just as Meg gets excited about the opportunity, she gets a call from Jen. Victoria has already informed Jen about quitting, and she wonders why Meg didn't tell her. Meg assures her they have it under control because Joe already has a lead for another chef. Jen plans to head back to Salt Lake, but Meg assures her that she and Joe will handle it. When Jesse stops by the restaurant, Joe tries his best to impress him. Marianne also offers to let Meg use the food bank if she needs more space for the party. In all the confusion, Frank's daughter Nina randomly turns up at the restaurant. After seeing Frank's photo on the email blast, she is wondering how he is. Meg gets so excited that she calls Joe to inform him about her. This freaks Nia out, and she leaves. After this, Meg feels disappointed because she doesn't want Frank to be alone on Christmas. That night, they all plan a surprise party for Victoria on her last day. When it's about to be over, Joe learns that Jesse turned them down for the job. He remembers another option and decides to drive with her to Hazelwood. He approaches his old friend Julie, but she asks them to meet her after the lunch rush. To pass time, they decide to take a carriage ride. Meg realizes she doesn't want to date anyone till she knows where she's headed. Joe understands that, because he's also not able to find anyone. When Julie also rejects them, Meg brings Joe to her parents' bakery in Hazelwood. They set up the extra tree in Dave's theater and start decorating it. Meg remembers her time with Dave and how he planned to move to Paris. He was hesitating, because he knew the theater also means a lot to him. Meg feels bad about Dave not being around, but Joe finds a Paris ornament and thinks he might be there. When Meg takes Joe to the tree lighting ceremony, Jen wonders why they both are there. She freaks out when she learns they have lost yet another chef. She doesn't trust Meg's plan anymore and decides to head back to the city herself. Meg feels bad that she needs to leave Simon behind, but he doesn't mind. He loved spending time with Jen in Hazelwood because she was relaxed after a long time. Before Meg and Joe leave for Salt Lake, Luke asks her about her return ticket from France. Meg admits that she didn't tell Joe about her Paris trip because she doesn't know what she wants. She starts thinking about another possible chef who might be right in front of them. She gets an idea and makes Jen meet Martin at his tapas stall. Jen gets impressed with Martin's knowledge about her and loves his food. Since they're short on time, she asks Joe to make Martin an offer. Jen notices a vibe between Joe and Meg, but Meg doesn't clarify anything. Joe thanks Meg for figuring out a solution and thinks that they fit very well together. She reminds him that he wants something permanent, which makes things awkward between them. Jen apologizes to Meg for not trusting her with the restaurant before. After all this, Meg is now thinking about using her France money to start something of her own. She seems sure that shifting to France won't help her without Dave. Soon enough, Meg joins the entire restaurant staff while they're ice skating. Alex assures Martin that nothing will change between them if he takes the restaurant job. When Joe and Meg are thrown under the mistletoe, there's more awkwardness. Joe knows she's not sure what she's looking for and leaves her alone. The following morning, Meg admits that she's inclined towards staying in Salt Lake. She still wants something of her own and doesn't really want Jen's life. When they head to the restaurant, Nina is waiting to join Frank for lunch. Meg decides to act cool so she doesn't ruin it for Frank this time. When Frank finally joins Nina, Meg asks Martin to prepare something special for them. A while later, she watches as Nina accuses Frank of doing the same thing again. As Nina walks out, Frank thanks Meg for the help, but refuses to eat anything. Meg finally realizes that she shouldn't meddle in people's lives anymore. Meg heads back to Hazelwood and attends a screening at the theater. She remembers what Dave told her about always believing in her ideas. She also remembers what he said about working with her sister. As Jen joins Meg, they discuss how the basement in the theater can be used to create a restaurant. Meg has already canceled her flight to France because she wants to stay in Salt Lake. They decide to get into business together and plan to work on the restaurant in the basement. This will help them keep the theater in the family while they work on Umber and Sprig too. On the day of the party, Joe shows Meg all the activities he planned without her. He has even arranged for a cookie decorating station and a photo booth. He assures her it works, and they take a bunch of fun photos together. When he points out that they make a great team, Meg reveals that she's not going to France. At the same time, Marianne is worried no one will turn up for the party because of the snowstorm. Joe also learns that the magazine is canceling the contest. As a consolation, the magazine is splitting the money between the 3 chosen charities. Marianne still feels that's a lot of money to feed many people. She is willing to wait for the grocery store if it means they can help more people in the meantime. When she mentions something about Joe joining her full-time, he clarifies to Meg that he has quit the restaurant. He feels good that with Meg joining it, he won't have to find his replacement. As Meg wonders what it means for them, Alex and Martin drop by with the food they prepared. Even if the party is canceled, they're hoping Marianne can find a way to use the food. Meg gets an idea and heads out while the others take down the Christmas decorations. She has found another location for them to have the party in. At the new venue, all 3 restaurants in the contest are allowed to present their food. Everyone is invited to this party with no pressure about getting judged for a contest. Meg's parents also drive up to the party to support her. Marianne feels guilty about stealing Joe from Jen, but Jen is just excited about working with her sister. Nina also drops by and admits that she wants to spend Christmas with Frank. When Marianne asks Frank to make a speech, he declares that he will fund the food bank's grocery store plan. Marianne gets so excited that she starts dancing with him. Meg asks Joe to join her in the photo booth and kisses him. When he agrees to spend Christmas with her, Jen is the first person she wants to share this with.